Boy, what an opportunity missed to win another football game on a number of fronts. And quite frankly, nobody escapes the having the finger pointed at them. Brock Purdy, worst game as a professional. Kyle Shanahan, head-scratching play calls for sure. Jake Moody, you got to make that kick. Defense, I know you're tired, but P.J. Walker, really? Are you kidding me? And refs, that was a tough one to watch. And not just the 49er game, by the way. That Sunday night football game ended on a clear pass interference. So tough day all around, and the 49ers lose it by 2. Steve Kerr will join us in 10 minutes. By the way, those two plays that we keep talking about with regard to the officials, there's the Gibson personal foul, and then there is the quote-unquote incomplete pass or fumble right before the half. Here's what Kyle Shanahan said about that play. Except for it's not actually being audibly heard at this point.
Yeah. I
played it.
Yeah.
I played it. Grandy, why didn't anybody hear that? Okay, let's try it one more time. Once again, for those of you who are new
big
here.
Setup, I love it.
Well, for those of you who are new here, new studio as of last Thursday.
Yep.
And new studio. Anyway, here we go. Try again.
I did on the scoreboard. Yeah, I fumble. I thought he underhand threw it, and I thought it came loose on his two thumbs, and that's why he just pushed the ball. Came out very unnaturally for a pass because I thought the ball was loose before he did.
Yeah, I agree. That's the thing. The whole letter of the law deal, not in my opinion. And there's a bunch of ways to look at this stuff. I've learned this actually through NFL replay more than anything else. You know how some people will be like, oh, well, we've got different truths. And other people will be like, you can't have different truths. There is a truth.
Sure.
Well, sure, but our eyeballs see things differently, and our biases come into that and all of that. Ball looked like it was not in his possession anymore. To me. Is that because I wanted it to be true? Maybe, but it very much to me looked like the ball had come loose, and then he shoved it. And no, by the letter of law, that's not an incomplete pass. It's a fumble.
Yeah, and it depends on what you consider to be possession in terms of the forward movement of the hand. And if the ball is in the hand and your hand is coming forward, then it is constituted as a pass. So that's basically what they look at. And when they go to review it in the league office and they look at what they saw on the film, I don't think that they see anything that's definitive. And because on the field, the referee emphatically calls it an incomplete pass in real time, then they don't overturn it. And I totally understand why they went that way. I thought in real time that it was a fumble, but when you see it in slow-mo and you see his hand going forward and the ball is kind of in his hand, he doesn't have necessarily a firm 5-finger grasp on it. So it becomes a little bit of gray area, and you heard what Kyle said, and he immediately looks at the scoreboard as they replay it, and of course he's going to think it's a fumble because he wants the ball.
Well, I also wonder this. I think we've reached a point of not understanding the replay process even. We were talking over the crossover about this, and Guru goes, yeah, New York. And I thought to myself, I don't even know if I know anymore who's reviewing what. Correct me if I'm wrong, since I know you're Johnny Rulebook.
Yeah.
New York is not reviewing that play, correct? This is the NFL. The head official is reviewing that play.
Well, I didn't see him.
Correct?
I didn't see him run over to the.
He did.
Maybe because they went to commercial. We don't get a chance to see him go under the hood.
He went over to look at the camera, and because I remember having the thought, I'm like, oh, nice. Bob's reviewing his own call.
Yeah.
Because that was the head official's call. He's the one who called it. It was his flag on the intentional grounding. He's the one who called it an incomplete pass. I said, well, now, of course he's going to uphold it. He's looking at his own call.
Right. Is he going to reverse his own call?
I mean, I do think there's a bias there a little bit. He's going to be like, well, I saw it a certain way on the field, and then he gets to a camera, and he's going to be like, yeah, that's what I saw. So, I don't know. I know in baseball, it's all third party.
New York.
College football, third party. NBA, often third party. But I'm just asking, do you know? The NFL, it's still just the guy on the field looking at a camera, right?
I think so, although every scoring play and every turnover is subject to review, and they don't run over under the hood in those cases. So I think that those are the ones that are reviewed back in New York. I mean, that's an interesting question because
I'm not sure.
If it's a question about whether or not somebody scored or not, that's one that they review back in the league office, I think.
I mean, our YouTube chat right here is kind of showing exactly what we're talking about. It's definitely a fumble. Oh, it was definitely an incomplete pass. Oh, it's definitely a fumble. Oh, this is definitely an incomplete pass. It's there are different truths, if you will. There's only one truth, but our eyes see it differently. And yes, sometimes that is based on what we want to see.
And the whole idea of truth is based on what you're looking at in terms of the rule. And here's what the rule says. When a player is in control of the ball and is attempting to pass it forward, any intentional forward movement of his hand starts a forward pass.
Right, but he didn't have control of the ball.
Well, that's where the gray area comes in.
He didn't have control of the ball, in my eyes, and in Kyle Shanahan's eyes.
Of course, but in the referee's eyes, in real time, he believed that the player had control of the ball, which is why he whistled it all dead and called it an incomplete pass. So then he goes and looks at it again, and he sees 2 fingers or 3 fingers or whatever is still on the ball as the hand is coming forward, and he says, he was in control of the ball. And so that's where you talk about the truth, your truth, my truth, Cleveland fan, Niner fan, Shanahan, Stefanski, everyone else. You're all going to see it the way you want to see it. We all have our biases.
Him included, because I do think it's a human trait to not want to be wrong.
Right. So he makes the call.
He makes the call.
And he believes that he made the correct call because then he went out and actually threw a flag late, believing that, hey, if I think it's an incomplete pass, it has to be intentional grounding because there's no way he wasn't out of the box. Correct. And it didn't get to the line. So now I got to throw a flag, and now I got to go look at it because we got to take a look under 2 minutes.
Exactly. And I could argue, I won't, but I could argue, it's if you were so sure that it was a pass the first time, then you would have thrown that flag right away, which you didn't.
Right.
Interesting.
Exactly. And I look at the job that Mr. Hussey did and his crew, and they had a bad day. They were too involved in the game, and that was late second quarter, and he had already been, I think, struggling with that game.
Yeah. 888-957-9570. Steve Kerr is just a few minutes away. Let's go to Joe in San Jose. Hey, Joe, what's cooking?
Oh, hey, guys. Thanks for taking my call. So you guys agree that Niners are not a great team because you got great teams find a way to win a game like that. Yesterday was a dogfight. You got to win those. Great teams got to win that game. So is the Niners all hype? Are they really a great team, or is it just too early to determine if they're a great team? Thanks for taking my call.
Yeah, Joe, thanks. I don't look at it that way at all. That's to me, that's way too black and white thinking or some sort of an overarching opinion based on one game. If great teams find a way to win close games, then I could argue there's been almost no great teams ever because nobody goes undefeated except for the Dolphins 1,000 years ago. Right? Even the New England Patriots, right? They went undefeated. They got all the way to the Super Bowl. Then they got into a low-scoring dogfight with the Giants. Would you say great teams find a way to win the game? Well, they didn't. So does that mean they're not a great team? Even though they were going against a Giants team that was 9-7 in the regular season?
Yeah.
I mean, come on, man. Great teams, yes. Great teams lose. The Warriors the other year went 73-9.
Right.
Great team? They lost. You lost close games.
Were the Philadelphia Eagles last year a great team?
They were really, really good.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they're a great team.
They were a great team. They knocked the Niners out, and then they should have beaten the Chiefs, but didn't, and the Chiefs roared back and won that game.
There's that term again. Should have won. Why? Because you were rooting for them.
Well, and they got Mahomes, much like the Niners did a few years earlier.
And that's a great player.
Yeah.
Found a way to win that game.
They sure did. But if you're a Philadelphia fan and you're a diehard Eagle fan, fly Eagles fly, you believe that you should have won that game.
Sure.
And, maybe you don't believe that they should have called pass interference, even though your own player admitted that, it was a good call.
Hold, on Bradberry. Yeah, Bradberry, who did a great job of calming that all down. But it was a hold. I held his jersey. What do you want?
Exactly.
Yeah, that was awesome. I still love that. Matt in San Rafael here with Willard and Dibs. Hey, Matt, what you doing?
Hey guys, just finishing up work. Commenting on what the last caller just said before I get to mine, the Niners with Young that slaughtered San Diego lost a stinker to the Eagles that year when Young was yelling at Seifert on the sideline. And in, I think it was 89 to 55-10 over the Broncos, they lost their only game to Pittsburgh, who was really bad that year. Yep. Lambert came back and played an unbelievable game. But anyway, the question I've got is, well, first, I've gone both ways about that quote, fumble or pass. And when you're questioning, you can't really argue with it. But the question I do have is, if I'm not mistaken, in college ball, if someone targets, the refs go and look at it and determine whether the kid's going to get ejected from the game or not.
That's correct.
Why can't they do that in the pros with a play like what happened with Gibson? Because the fact of the matter is, if they had looked, they would have picked the flag up. I don't know why they just don't include it. If they're saying that they're doing this for the safety of the game, I think it even begs the question more, why don't they make it a reviewable play? Because the player could ostensibly, face some kind of sanction other than, a flag or a fine.
Matt, I could not agree with you more, man. Thank you so much for calling. The only reason they don't is because at this point they're not allowed to, because it's not in the rule book. But I agree with you completely, and we've made that comp already today in that if in college football you got time to go review every targeting play, why wouldn't you do it in the NFL as well? If that were a rule, it's not. But if it were, yeah, there's a good chance 49ers win that game yesterday.
Well, it's possible. And again, it comes down to what is seen on review. And I was just doing some research on the review in the NFL, and they have what's called the replay assistance rule. So even though he goes over and looks at the Microsoft Surface tab, the tablet,
they can get in his ear.
They're getting his ear.
Yeah.
They're getting in his ear. So it doesn't necessarily get kicked to New York like it used to, but it's a collaboration sensation, Mark, is what it is.
That's good to know.